The national government in India is referred to by several names, including the federal government, the central government, and the union government. In contrast, the regional government is called the state government or the provincial government. To understand the concept of a federation, we can trace its roots to the Latin word foedus, which means treaty or agreement. A federation is created when different units, like states, provinces, or republics, come together through a formal agreement. These units can be known by different names in various countries. For instance, in the United States, they are called states, while in Switzerland, they are referred to as cantons. In Canada, they are known as provinces, and Russia has republics. Federations can come into existence in two major ways. The first method is through integration, where several smaller or weaker regions join together to form a stronger union. An example of this is the United States, which was formed when smaller colonies united. The second method is through disintegration, where a large and unified state grants autonomy or self-governance to its smaller regions. Canada is an example of this type of federation, as it evolved from a central British colony to a government that recognizes the rights of its provinces. The United States is the oldest and first federation in the world, established in 1787 after the American Revolution, which lasted from 1775 to 1783. Initially comprising 13 states, the country has now grown to include 50 states. Canada, which became a federation in 1867 with its 10 provinces, is also noteworthy in the history of federations. India's constitution establishes the country as a federal system of government. The framers of the constitution decided to adopt a federal structure for two main reasons: the vast size of India and its rich diversity in terms of culture, language, and ethnicity. They believed that a federal system would not only help in effective governance but also balance national unity with the need for regional autonomy. It is worth noting that the word federation is not explicitly mentioned in the Indian Constitution. Instead, Article 1 refers to India as a union of states. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who played a key role in drafting the Constitution, emphasized why Union of States was chosen over Federation of States. He pointed out two essential aspects. First, the Indian Federation does not originate from an agreement among states, as in the American case. Second, unlike in a typical federation where states may have the right to leave, Indian states cannot secede from the Union. Therefore, the term union signifies that it is an indestructible entity. Moreover, India's federal system is influenced more by the Canadian model than the American model. The Canadian Federation is characterized by a strong central authority, and this is reflected in India as well. The Indian Federation shares several features with the Canadian model. It was formed through disintegration from a central authority, uses the term union, and has a tendency to centralize power. In summary, India's federal system is unique and reflects both its historical context and the intention of its founders to ensure both unity and regional representation. Articles in the Indian Constitution, like Article 1, which defines India as a union of states, and Article 245, which outlines the power of Parliament to make laws for the whole or any part of the territory of India, among others, form the backbone of this federal structure. By understanding these elements, we gain insight into how India navigates its diversity while maintaining a cohesive national identity. Federal features of the Constitution of India. The Constitution of India has important features that make it a federal system. Federalism is a way of organizing a nation so that power is shared between a central government and smaller state or regional governments. In India, this division of power helps manage the diverse needs of its vast population and different regions. One of the key characteristics of the Indian Constitution is the distribution of powers between the central government and the state governments. This is primarily laid out in Articles 245 to 300. The Constitution provides a clear framework for governance, ensuring that certain areas are managed by the central government, while others are under the control of state governments. The Constitution has 3 lists that clearly define these powers. Union List. This list has subjects on which only the central government can make laws. It includes important areas such as defense, atomic energy, foreign affairs, and railways, which are crucial for the country as a whole. State List. This list includes subjects on which only state governments can legislate. These subjects include police, public health, agriculture, and local government. This allows states to address their specific needs, taking into account their unique circumstances. Concurrent List. This list contains subjects where both the central and state governments can legislate. If there is a conflict between the laws made by both levels, the law made by the central government prevails. The concurrent list includes areas like education, marriage and adoption, and bankruptcy. This ensures cooperation and coordination between different levels of government. Another important aspect of Indian federalism is the supremacy of the Constitution itself. The Constitution is the highest law of the land, which means that all other laws passed by the central or state governments must support the principles laid out within it. This is emphasized in Article 13, which states that any law that contradicts the Constitution is void. Additionally, Article 356 provides for the imposition of precedence rule in states if the constitutional machinery breaks down. This is a significant power held by the central government, which allows it to intervene in state matters under specific circumstances. While this ensures stability at the national level, it can also raise questions about the autonomy of states. The distribution of financial resources also plays a vital role in the federal structure of India. The Finance Commission, established under Article 280, is responsible for recommending how the revenues collected by the central government should be shared with the states. This body helps in maintaining a balance of financial power between the central and state governments. Judicial independence is another feature of federalism in India. The Supreme Court of India, as mentioned in Article 124, serves as the apex judicial authority and is responsible for interpreting the Constitution. It can resolve disputes between the centre and the states, ensuring that both levels of government respect their constitutional boundaries. In conclusion, the federal features of the Constitution of India create a framework for a balanced distribution of power, taking into consideration the diverse needs of the country. Through various articles and provisions, it ensures that both the central and state governments can function effectively while also maintaining the supremacy of the Constitution. This structure promotes unity while allowing for regional diversity, making India a unique federal state. The Constitution of India creates a system called dual polity, which means there are 2 levels of government, the union government and the state governments. Each level has specific powers and responsibilities given to them by the Constitution. The union government, situated at the center, manages issues that affect the whole country. This includes important matters like national defense, foreign relations, the management of currency, and communication systems. For example, when it comes to building a strong army to protect the country or negotiating agreements with other nations, the union government takes the lead. These responsibilities are largely outlined in Articles 50 to 151 of the Constitution, where powers related to the union legislature and government are detailed. On the other hand, state governments handle issues that are more local or regional in nature. They are responsible for things like maintaining public order, managing agriculture, overseeing health care services, and running local government affairs. For instance, state governments implement laws and policies that affect the day-to-day lives of the citizens in their regions, such as setting rules for local schools or managing state highways. The relevant powers for state governments can be primarily found in Articles 153 to 237 of the Constitution. This separation of responsibilities is important because it allows for a more organized approach to governance. It enables the union government to focus on national issues that require uniformity across the country, while state governments can adapt their policies to cater to the unique needs of their local populations. Additionally, the Constitution also provides a way for these different levels of government to work together, ensuring that they do not step on each other's toes. For example, Article 246 of the Constitution outlines the topics on which each government can legislate, clarifying the division of responsibilities further. This dual setup is essential in a diverse country like India, where different regions have unique challenges and requirements. In conclusion, the dual polity in India is a well-structured system where both the union and state governments have their own roles and powers. This setup not only encourages localized governance but also promotes national unity and coordination in addressing important issues affecting the citizens. Written Constitution of India. The Constitution of India is a significant and formal document that serves as the foundation of the country's legal and political system. Recognized as the longest written constitution in the world, it was designed to establish a framework for governance and ensure that the country operates within the rule of law. Originally, the Constitution included a preamble along with 395 articles that were organized into 22 parts and accompanied by 8 schedules. Over the years, it has undergone several amendments, and as of now, it consists of a preamble, approximately 470 articles, divided into 25 parts, and contains 12 schedules. The preamble outlines the guiding principles and values of the Constitution, emphasizing justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. The articles detail the structure, roles, and responsibilities of both the central government and state governments. For instance, Articles 14 to 18 focus on the enjoyment of fundamental rights by the citizens, ensuring equality before the law and the prohibition of discrimination. Articles 19 to 22 outline specific rights related to freedom of speech, assembly, association, movement, residence, and profession, which are essential for a democratic society. The division of powers between different levels of government is crucial in preventing misunderstandings and disputes regarding authority and responsibilities. For instance, Articles 245 to 255 explain the legislative powers of Parliament and state legislatures, detailing how laws can be made and by whom. This division aims to create a balance of power and responsibilities, which helps to maintain a healthy relationship between the central and state governments. Furthermore, the Constitution includes various schedules that provide a detailed framework on issues such as the allocation of powers between the Union and the states, the types of taxes that can be levied, and lists of specific subjects that fall under both levels of government. This clear demarcation helps prevent conflicts and enhances governance. Overall, the Indian Constitution not only lays out the laws and guidelines but also acts as a living document that evolves through amendments to keep up with the changes in society. It is an essential tool for ensuring that governance remains just and equitable, making it a cornerstone of democracy in India. The Indian Constitution has a well-structured way of dividing powers between the central government and the state governments. This division is laid out in the 7th schedule of the Constitution, which contains 3 important lists: the Union List, the State List, and the Concurrent List. Understanding how these lists work is key to grasping how laws are made in India. Firstly, the Union List contains 98 subjects. It was originally made up of 97 subjects. These are important areas where only the central government has the authority to make laws. Examples of topics in this list include defense, foreign affairs, and atomic energy. This means that matters concerning national security or international relations are solely handled by the central government. On the other hand, the state list consists of 59 subjects. Initially, there were 66 subjects. This list covers matters that can be handled exclusively by state governments, such as policing, public health, and agriculture. Each state has the power to legislate on these subjects, allowing them to address local needs and concerns effectively. The concurrent list is a bit different. It originally contained 47 subjects but has now expanded to include 52 subjects. Both the central government and the state governments can make laws on these topics. However, if there is a disagreement between the central law and the state law on a subject listed in the concurrent list, the central law takes precedence. This means that in case of a conflict, the law made by the central government will be considered the final word. In addition to these three lists, there is also a concept of residuary subjects, which refers to any matters that are not specifically mentioned in any of the lists. According to Article 248 of the Constitution, the powers to legislate on these residual subjects are given to the central government. This aspect ensures that the central government can address issues that may arise in the future without being restricted by the lists. Understanding this division of powers is crucial because it outlines how governance operates in India. It ensures that while both levels of government can make laws, they have clearly defined areas of responsibility. This framework is not only essential for maintaining order, but it also supports the federal structure of India, which allows for a degree of autonomy for states while remaining united under a central authority. In summary, the division of powers as described in the Constitution reflects the diverse needs of India's vast population while ensuring a structured approach to governance. The Union List, State List, and Concurrent List together create a balance that helps both the center and the states function effectively within their respective domains. Supremacy of the Constitution in India. The Constitution of India is considered the highest law in the country. This means that it is the most important legal document, and all other laws made by both the central and state governments must follow what it says. If any law goes against the Constitution, it can be declared invalid, which means it will not have any legal power. This process of checking whether laws conform to the Constitution is known as judicial review. Judicial review is a significant power held by the Supreme Court and High Courts in India, allowing them to ensure that laws align with constitutional principles. For example, Article 13 of the Indian Constitution states that any law that contradicts the Constitution, particularly fundamental rights, is void. This means it loses its legal standing and cannot be enforced. Moreover, the Constitution outlines the roles and limits of different branches of government: the legislative, which makes laws, the executive, which implements laws, and the judicial, which interprets laws. Each of these branches must operate within the powers given to them by the Constitution. This system is set up to make sure that no branch of government exceeds its authority and that the rights of citizens are protected. The concept of supremacy of the Constitution is also reinforced by Article 368, which details the procedure for amending the Constitution. Amendments can be made, but they cannot alter its basic structure. This idea was laid out in the landmark case of Kesavananda Bharati v. State of Kerala, 1973, where the Supreme Court ruled that the Constitution has a basic structure that should not be changed. In essence, the supremacy of the Constitution keeps the structure of governance in India stable and ensures that the rights of individuals are safeguarded against arbitrary actions by the government. The Constitution acts as a guiding framework, making sure that all laws and government actions remain in alignment with democratic principles and the fundamental rights of citizens, as outlined in Articles 12 to 35. By maintaining the supremacy of the Constitution, India ensures justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity among all its citizens, remaining true to the core values that the Constitution stands for. Rigid Constitution. A rigid constitution is a type of constitution where changing or amending its basic principles and laws is not an easy task. This rigidity is important for maintaining the division of powers and ensuring that the constitution remains the highest law of the land. In India, the constitution is designed to be rigid in certain aspects, especially those related to the federal structure. The Indian constitution divides powers between the central government and the state governments. This division is critical for maintaining a balance and for ensuring that both levels of government can effectively function. Articles 245 to 255 outline this division of powers and responsibilities clearly. The federal structure is a key feature, meaning that both the central and state governments have their own set of responsibilities and powers. For a rigid constitution like India's, amending significant provisions, like those that deal with the relations between the centre and the states or the structure of the judiciary, requires more than just a simple majority in Parliament. Instead, it requires a special majority, which means that a larger proportion of the members must agree to the changes. Specifically, an amendment of this nature needs the support of at least two-thirds of the members present and voting in both houses of Parliament, as outlined in Article 368. Additionally, there is another important requirement, the approval of at least half of the state legislatures. This ensures that the states, which would be directly affected by these changes, have a say in the amendment process. This provision is essential for maintaining the federal nature of the Constitution, as it represents a collaborative approach between the central and state governments. This framework of rigid amendments creates a stable governance structure, promoting continuity while also protecting the rights of states and ensuring that any significant changes are carefully considered and agreed upon by both levels of government. Thus, the rigid nature of the Indian Constitution helps to preserve its foundational principles while also allowing for necessary adaptation through a thorough and democratic process. Independent judiciary in India. The Constitution of India sets up a strong and independent judiciary, with the Supreme Court at its head. An independent judiciary is crucial because it ensures that the law is upheld and that everyone, including the government, must follow the Constitution. The judiciary has two main functions. First, it protects the supremacy of the Constitution through a process called judicial review, and second, it resolves disputes between the central government and the state governments or between the states themselves. Judicial review is an essential feature of our democracy. It allows the courts to examine laws and actions taken by the legislature and the executive branches of government to ensure they do not violate the Constitution. If the judiciary finds that a law or action is unconstitutional, it has the power to strike it down. This role is vital as it serves as a check on the powers of the other branches of government, helping to maintain the balance of power and prevent any one branch from becoming too powerful or acting against the rights of citizens. To ensure that the judiciary remains free from influence and operates independently, the Constitution has put several protections in place. For instance, the Constitution provides security of tenure for judges, meaning they cannot be easily removed from their position without due process. Article 124 outlines the appointment and conditions of service for Supreme Court judges, while Article 217 deals with the appointment of judges to high courts. These articles emphasize that judges have fixed terms, which helps them make decisions based solely on the law rather than on political or governmental pressure. Additionally, the Constitution establishes a transparent process for the appointment of judges to the higher judiciary, mostly through the collegium system. This means that current judges of the Supreme Court and High Courts play a significant role in recommending candidates for judicial appointments. This system is designed to uphold the quality and independence of the judiciary by placing the selection process in the hands of experienced judges rather than politicians. Overall, the independent judiciary is a cornerstone of Indian democracy, protecting citizens' rights and ensuring that justice is served without fear or favor. Its ability to review laws, protect the constitution, and resolve disputes helps maintain a balance among the different branches of government, making sure that the rule of law prevails in the country. The Constitution of India creates a two-house parliament known as a bicameral legislature. This consists of the upper house, called the Rajya Sabha, and the lower house, known as the Lok Sabha. Each of these houses has its own unique role in the functioning of the Indian government. The Lok Sabha represents the general population of India. It is made up of members of parliament, MPs, who are directly elected by the citizens of the country through general elections held every 5 years. The Lok Sabha is often considered the more powerful chamber because it is responsible for introducing and approving most laws, especially those related to finance and governance. On the other hand, the Rajya Sabha represents the various states and union territories of India. Members of the Rajya Sabha are not elected directly by the public, instead, they are chosen by the elected members of the state legislative assemblies and by the President of India for some seats. This structure ensures that the interests of the states are taken into account at the national level. Even though the Rajya Sabha has fewer powers compared to the Lok Sabha, it plays an essential role in maintaining the balance between the central government and state governments, ensuring that state rights are protected against potential overreach by the central authority. The Constitution of India, under Article 80, outlines the composition of the Rajya Sabha and explains how its members are elected. It stipulates that the Rajya Sabha can have a maximum of 250 members, with 238 being representatives of the states and union territories and 12 appointed by the President for their expertise in specific fields like literature, science, art, and social services. Bicameralism, in this context, helps establish a system of checks and balances in the government. It allows for a more thorough review of legislation, as proposed laws must pass through both houses. Features that lean towards a unitary system, giving more authority to the central government. This has sparked debate among scholars about whether India truly embodies a federal structure. K.C. Ware, a constitutional expert, described the Indian constitution as quasi-federal, suggesting that India operates more like a unitary state with some federal characteristics rather than a typical federation. The reasons for this centralization of power can be identified in two main areas: the financial dependency of states on the central government's grants, and the influence of the former Planning Commission, which played a significant role in shaping state development policies. K. Santhanam noted that India has functioned mostly like a unitary state, despite the formal structure of a federation. However, not all scholars agree with this perspective. Some, like Paul Appleby, regard the Indian system as extremely federal. Maurice Jones describes it as bargaining federalism, indicating that the relationship between the centre and states is often negotiated. Ivor Jennings called it a federation with a strong centralizing tendency, emphasizing that the Constitution has built-in measures to maintain national unity and encourage growth. Granville Austin used the term cooperative federalism to illustrate how the Constitution strengthens the central government while still allowing the states to maintain significant powers. He argued that the Indian system is uniquely designed to cater to the country's specific needs. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, one of the architects of the Indian Constitution, stated that while the Constitution establishes a dual polity, it avoids a rigid form of federalism. Ambedkar pointed out that both the Union, central government, and the states derive their powers from the Constitution, which means they are co-equal. Ambedkar also defended the Constitution against claims of excessive centralization. He argued that the distribution of powers between the central government and the states is clearly outlined in the constitution itself and that states are not merely extensions of the central authority. They operate with their own legislative and executive powers, which the center cannot arbitrarily change. This understanding of federalism was reinforced by the Supreme Court in the 1994 Bommai case, where it acknowledged federalism as a basic feature of the Constitution. The court emphasized that while the central government may have more power relative to the states, this does not diminish the independent constitutional existence of the states. The Indian federal system can be understood as a compromise that balances two opposing needs: the autonomy of states within their territories and the necessity for a strong central government to maintain national integrity, especially during emergencies. There are various indicators of India's federal nature, including ongoing territorial disputes between states, such as the one between Maharashtra and Karnataka over Belgaum. Contentions over shared resources, like the water disputes between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu concerning the Kaveri River. The rise of regional political parties and their governance in states like Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. The formation of new states, such as Mizoram, Jharkhand, or Telangana, to address regional aspirations. States demanding more financial assistance from the central government to support development. States asserting their autonomy and resisting central interference. The judiciary's imposition of controls over the invocation of Article 356, which allows for precedence rule in states. Articles of the Indian Constitution, such as Article 1, which defines India as a union of states, and the distribution of powers outlined in the 7th schedule, clarify the responsibilities of both the union and the states. Overall, while India has a distinctly federal constitution, its functioning demonstrates a complex balance between the central and state governments, reflecting the country's diverse needs and realities.